September 30th. It's finally starting to look like a combine again. We got our rump on. I'm going to oil those all up and make sure all their controls are working, and then we will slide them in and get them bolted down. What we like to do is clean our sieves. You open them up with a nice vice grip like this, and you can actually get some quietus on them. Get them opened up. Normally your corn cobs will fall right out. Have your sieve turned over and poke them out with a screwdriver. Then your sieves can actually close all the way. And then your next step, when you get them open, or that you can do this before, use some PB Blaster or WD-40 and coat every one of these rails back and forth, both sides. And then once that's done, work them back and forth once you get all the corn cobs out with these vice grips. That makes them, get them freed up to where you can do it underneath the butt when it's 100 degrees out and you have to adjust your sieves. You at least knew they were working when you slid them in. And then the third and final step is get a wire wheel. Doesn't have to be a fine wheel, this just happens to be grinder, of course your preference, and clean your side rails. They were all normally galvanized, but it just depends on how many hours your combine had on them. If they were loose and shaking back and forth in there, rubs the galvanized off and you might get a rust line or something. That all just helps to ensure you can get them in and out and that they work properly. Make sure if you're ever grinding, you use some good safety glasses. These are bodyguards. I get them from Fastenal. They're kind of my favorite pair. They flex, they extend, and a little bit of safety goes a long way, and you'll get a lot more work done with them than you will without them. I wasn't sure if I covered this in an earlier video or not, but anytime you take your sieves out, it's important to mark each one. This is upside down because I'm getting ready to clean and oil it. This is our middle one. And then we have our top one back there, which is the shortest one. And then this one is the bottom. And this has these large flutes. And what this is supposed to do, this is where you get your rethrash separation. You have these open just a little bit more than the rest of all of your sieves. And then anything that is small enough to go through the sieve and not go out the back of the combine goes down into your rethrash cross auger and gets rethrashed and then thrown back on top of your original top sieve. She's looking more and more like a combine by the hour. Got all three of our sieves installed. I haven't done our sieve settings yet. And our chopper mounted. And we're slowly making progress. I had to go up to the John Deere dealership and get some half links and master links for our new elevator chains. That was a bit of a hassle, and we're getting ready to install our straw chopper belt. Slowly making progress, and I don't know if I will get this new or not. I only have 3 straw chopper knives, or the stationary knives that you adjust into the straw chopper depending on how much you want the straw to be chopped up. I might go after that, or I might just run it this year. I'm not sure yet. Okay, YouTube, it's been a great day. Got our eccentric Pitman put on. Got both of our belts installed. Both elevator chains are installed and set to the proper tension. I have to put on our cross auger drive chain up there, way up in the top of the hopper, and but it was quite a feat in my opinion. We had to fish a wire down the back side of this and then wire it to the chain and pull it up, go over our sprocket and back down, and then of course we put our master link in the bottom. This one was very easy to pull both ways. It's got a monster sized door up there. You can get 2 hands in easily. This one you can't even get 3 or 4 fingers in. And now we're going to put on our straw chopper belt and slowdown kit, and we're going to go from there. all in all, got a lot accomplished today. It's getting dark, that's why I wanted to do this update video before I had everything put on and installed. But a few extra hours and we're really making progress today. A lot of the big two-man jobs have been accomplished. October 1st, we've done quite a bit of work. Worked a little late last night, which you'll see in the videos. Just installed our slow down kit, which we bypassed because we're not doing corn with this machine due to the fact that we don't have a head big enough for it. Just put our belt on, tensioned it. You want this rascal pretty tight and it's going to stretch anyway. Elevator chains are installed, and this morning I'm going to work on installing this belt and installing our turbo pre-cleaner right there, changing our spinner gasket, or the seal if you will, right here. They're always shot. They get peeled off or rubbed off, whichever, and I really don't know that it does that much for you, but why not put it on? You're here. And then I will make it a point today to get this welded. This is the last welding project we have. This is kind of common on them. On the Parts 550, they have a big chunk of iron welded outside because they didn't have the throat off, obviously. And you know, you're in the field and you're wanting to get stuff done. I can understand things like that, but it just starts making your combine look like junk. And I think that will do it for this side. And I need to get a rubber strap fitted for the battery box. And that should take care of this side. I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous video, but I am looking for this concave. I believe they call this the concave. When you go to corn, it tells you to remove the concave. So I'm looking into that, but I haven't found anything yet. And we never really used to run them. It just depends on how fine you want your straw beat up and chopped up. I thought this was worth mentioning. I called the dealer, Coons Equipment, and I asked them how old this combine was, and they needed the combine code, which is a 1201, and then they needed the combine serial number, which is 30519, and they told me that this combine was made in 1976, and just so you don't have to do the math, that's 40 years old. So on her 40th birthday, I don't know when it was manufactured, but she got a total facelift. Kind of neat. Bring something back that's this old and bring it back to operating condition. This is a view of the hopper. I thought I'd do a quick video. This is our nice new elevator chains. Nice white UHMW. Turned our block. This was getting pretty wore. It had never been turned before. About 50% of the chain was down in the wooden block. And I don't know that it would ever happen, but I've always been worried that it might rub your master link off if it gets too deep. Maybe some of the old timers that watch this video can enlighten me on this, but I have a theory to this carrier pan across the auger here. You can see mine is turned down, and that would let you load this side first, and then of course once you reach the peak, spills over into the other side and you fill this hopper completely up. But if someone was working in plot work or they had very little to harvest, I believe this pan would be rotated down to the 6 o'clock position. You close this gate, and then all you would do is load your unloading auger side. If you had just a small amount to harvest, this would make your clean out much more efficient because you wouldn't have to run through the auger that goes under the straw walker area, and you would only have to clean out this side of the hopper. Once again, I don't know if that's a correct theory, but it does seem to make sense to me. And obviously you would turn it if you didn't want to have to clean it out and you weren't worried about harvesting just a small amount of grain or corn or whatever. Switching gears this morning, We had to go to the 300. We're going to try to run both combines on this buckwheat harvest. And we had an idler go out right here. Not a big deal. We've got several running around. When I went to buy the 550, I took all of the idlers off of the other machine that the man had as well. So just ran up to the parts loft and got one. Here was the old one. Doesn't look bad, but they just lock up. And once again, I'd like to change my bolts out. These bolts, especially these two longer ones, definitely original because they're fine thread. And they were just turning off all sorts of terrible. So we got that belt changed. It kind of roasted the old belt. See if I can find it here. Yeah, the back got a little cooked and grooved. So I had my brother go to Napa this morning, and he bought the original size was an A60, and it was really crunched down real close to that other, the hydraulic pump belt. So he got all three sizes, a step down and a step above, and that just ensures that you can get a good fit and you're not running back to the parts store, and you can always return those if you don't get them dirty. Sunday I washed the combine. I always hate to work on Sunday, but I wanted it dried out for Monday, and that saved me 4 hours this morning getting that all clean, degreasing. That steam cleaner we bought really does a good job. I don't have to use that purple power anymore. And I'm going to adjust our elevator chains. They appear to be just a hair loose. Nothing too bad, but you always want to do the maintenance that you can while you're in the shop, and that just saves you from time in the field when it's hot and dusty out. The combine's still nice and clean, and then you don't have to be out in the hot 100-degree weather working on your combine. You can do it in the shade with the fans running. We have our Pitman off. I did have to heat this inner bearing race and what you call heating with 2 hammers. I heated it up with the torch, and then you take 2 hammers and hit it from opposing sides like this simultaneously, and that causes that to expand. That's a little trick. And then this side I used a puller because our bearing was still good on there. Really love these Posi-Lock pullers. They're not cheap. I think that's like 150 a piece or 300. This is the biggest one they have. That's the next size down. They have them all the way down to real little bitty. But worth every penny. It's the best puller I've ever used. You're able to just clamp around. You run that nut up, it clamps like this. There's no slipping off. There's no trying to hold it and bloodying your fingers when it comes off and spins. And anyway, this bearing is looking real good. It's got good movement yet, and it doesn't actually go around. This is the only bearing that goes around. This one just goes back and forth for the Pitman eccentric to work. And I'm going to pull this out, and then we're going to actually use the bearing from the 510. I've got our worn out bearing out with the assistance of the torch, and just knocked it out with a nice tap. And this is not going to work because up here we have a rounded style housing that fits this. It's rounded, I don't know how well you can see it. And this is a press-in style flat back bearing. And this, try not to get burned here, is obviously way too loose. So I'm going to have to go to a parts combine and pull off its Pitman, and we will go from there. Alright, I went to the other machine and just pulled its Pitman off, and both bearings were good. They turned good, so there was no reason to try and knock that bearing out. And I don't know if this is correct or incorrect, but the snap ring was up top on the old machine, the parts machine. So I did it the same way here. This isn't bent like a 510. A 510's bent one way and then bent the other way on the other end. So this shouldn't have mattered, but I wanted to keep it the way they had it. I don't know if there was a reason, but I did it the same. And never seized them, shined the bolt threads, never seized those, and we're ready to hit the field. Working in the cab here, Of course, you can't get this clean. That's kind of the breaks of the game. But I worked on pulling this valve out. This is called the Cessna valve in the manual. We call them the 3-spool valve. They got 3 spools in them. And we actually bought from Surplus Center a valve that was just like this, except right here, instead of having the port here at an angle, it's called the Beyond valve. Power Beyond valve is what the man told me. There was a spot here for it to be milled out and machined to receive this fitting. It was not done. So what I had him do for $80, you can buy that valve, the Cessna valve, from Surplus Center, and had him take out all the components that he could and put them in this spool valve or Cessna valve, including the detent adjustment, which is right here. And these always have leaked right here. They always would just drip continually. And so now when you, of course this pin is in, the actuator pin, which makes it work backwards and forwards. But before, you could just spin those spools just easy. I mean, just no effort. And these, before I had this actuator pin in, were actually stiff to spin, which is a good sign. And we fired it up. We're actually out of hydraulic fluid. I've got 5 more gallons coming, but we fired it up and actuated our variator, which is our ground speed right here, and it was working, but we didn't want to run the pump dry with getting all the air out of the system, so we're waiting for more hydraulic fluid. I'm still preemptively wanting to catch any leaks if there is any. So we got our old towels. These are just garage sale finds, and then around each hose I like to put a little shop towel, and that kind of makes a ring for it to run down on and then start to weep onto these towels. This is kind of the best little method that I've found, and then every year when you wash your combine, you take them out, throw them away, and get new ones. These are just $1 or so at a yard sale or whatever. Now I'm going to start reassembling the cab. This is your thrashing cylinder speed adjustment right here. We'll never seize that. That was quite a bear to get off. The crank is actually laying right there. And then you pull your front concave setting adjustment right here. It's actually upside down. You pull these 2 bolts out, and then you can get this off this shield here. This was quite a job to get off with that on there. I did manage to do it, but I actually bent this, so I had to take our adjustment off here and then push it back the other way to kind of get it bent correctly again. Our Cessna valve is reinstalled. We put all of our shields on, and Charlie checked as I would move the lever down, and we made just marks, the magic marker of the different front concave settings, or thrashing cylinder, and we've got our first shield on. This didn't turn out quite as nice as I would have liked, but we tried to make a little rubber seal here, but it was better than what it was. It was about 3/4 of an inch wide, and even if we stop just 2 little flecks of dust, we'll be in good shape. We will be doing a little bit of siliconing. It's quite a gap there. And tomorrow we install the seat. It's about 5:30. And we didn't have to do anything to the brakes on this machine. Both brakes seem to stay primed. And other than that, we got to get some carpet for the cab, but we're going to call it a night.